All right, so let's get started. So last time when I stopped, I was talking about compound helicopters. And the reason why we are making compound helicopters, can you remind me? Can anybody tell me why we are trying to make compound helicopters?
Sir, to increase the speed of the helicopter.
Right. So why can't current helicopters not fly at higher speeds? What is the problem? What is the challenge? Why helicopters cannot fly as fast as airplanes? Who can answer this?
Sir, maybe the airplanes engines are turbojet engines, so because of that they are flying at higher speed.
Oh, no, not all airplanes have turbojet engines. Yeah. Turbojet engines are only used in fighter airplanes, nowhere else.
In commercial airplanes,
they are turbofan engines.
Turbofan engines.
Yes. Or turboprop engines. Smaller commercial airplanes use turboprop engines. Who can tell? Any idea? Why cannot a helicopter fly fast? By the way, I put the link for the documentary that you are supposed to watch. I mean, I actually uploaded the whole documentary because that documentary violates the, copyright issue or something. So it's not there on YouTube anymore. It's deleted now. So did anybody watch that documentary?
Yes, sir.
How was it?
Yes, sir.
It was very good.
Yeah, it's really good fun. I mean, whenever I turn it on, I cannot stop myself from watching it. So I end up watching it again. So anyway, why cannot helicopters fly fast? So one question was engine. That is, power could be the limitation. No, that is not the correct answer. Okay. So I can always put a bigger and bigger engine. There is no question about that. There is no problem with that.
Sir, maybe there is a difference in the lift on both sides, left or right.
Yes, that is the clue to the answer. Yes. So you are on the right track. Okay. It is one side lift is more, other side lift is less. Why is lift more? Why is lift less? On one side versus the other side. Right, you said, that one side lift is more. Why is it more? How does it become more?
Thrust is not generated more. That's why.
No, but what causes this lift or thrust to increase more? What is the parameter which controls this?
Sir, you told now to overcome this problem we use saw plate. So maybe.
No, overcome this problem we do other things. But I am asking more fundamental question.
Okay.
When helicopter is in forward flight, one side of the rotor has higher lift, other side of the rotor has lower lift. I probably have such diagram later. Let's see if I have it. I'm going very high here. I wanted to show this graph here. So this is the map of contour plot of lift over the entire helicopter rotor disc. This is actual measured flight test data for Black Hawk helicopter at pretty high speed of around 145 knots, which would be roughly 300 kilometers per hour. So you see, red indicates higher lift, blue indicates lower lift. So you can see on the side, which is the advancing side, which is moving into the wind, we have higher lift. The side which is moving away from the wind, there is lesser lift. Why is it?
Sir, because of the relative motion, because diametrically opposite points have different velocities at
exactly different velocities. Yeah.
Yes,
so
yes, sir.
When my helicopter is stationary, all the points on the blade at a given radial station. So these circles which you see, white circles, are you able to see these white circles in this map?
Yes, sir.
Right. So these white circles denote different locations. Okay. So when I am in hovering condition, any point on this circle, if you hold one circle and move along, all the points will have same velocity, right? Because that velocity is simply because of rotation of the blade, omega into r.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But when I am in forward flight, there is wind coming from the top. So on this side, that wind adds to the speed of the blade. and on the other side that subtracts.
Exactly, exactly. Sir.
Right. So one side I have higher speed, other side I have lower speed, and that is why more lift on one side, less lift on the other side. But this increased speed, so if you see at 90 degrees, the speed will be maximum. Speed of my blade plus speed of the helicopter. Now this speed, if I keep increasing, what will happen to this speed? People from aero background, yeah. What happens if your airplane speeds keep on increasing? Certain point comes when
Stall.
no, stall is not related to speed of the air. That is because of angle of attack. Okay, your voice is breaking. What happens?
Mach number increases to 1.
Exactly. Mach
Supersonic
number
flight.
increases. Yes, exactly. Very good. Yeah. So your speed will reach the speed of sound. What is the maximum Mach number at which commercial airplanes fly?
0.8.
0.8, exactly. Why 0.8? Why not more than 0.8? What is so special about 0.8 and not 0.9 or 0.95? Why not?
The engine blades will face relative Mach number of 1 also. If they go beyond that, the blades will break simply.
Blades, forget about that. I mean, okay, more than blades, okay, your wing.
It
start
faces,
experiencing-
it encounters drag divergence.
Exactly. So what happens? Okay, so those of you who are not from aero background, okay, if your speed, okay, so my airfoil is in flow, okay, lift will keep on increasing, and drag also increases with speed. But at a point, I mean, beyond, so if I look at a graph of lift versus angle of attack of an airfoil and drag versus angle of attack of an airfoil, what you would see is that beyond Mach number 0.75, 0.78, 0.8, most airfoils actually exhibit sudden increase in drag. The drag will suddenly shoot up, will just go very high. And that is called drag divergence here. So your drag will increase suddenly. And if my drag increases suddenly, my power requirement will just go crazy haywire. It will become 4 times, 5 times, 10 times. So it is no longer economical. Plus the shock, because what happens when the flow becomes supersonic, shock waves start getting set up and at different points on the blade. See what happened even in airfoil. I mean, even my flow is subsonic at the initial point because the flow accelerates. Some points you will start experiencing supersonic flow, and that may actually increase drag, power, all kinds of problems it can create. It can even cause high pitching moments, which happens in helicopters. So that is the reason why, I mean, if I start going very fast, so to begin with, what happens? I mean, when I'm a helicopter is in hovering flight, my rotor blade tip is already at a high speed. So most of the helicopters have tip Mach number in hover condition. So Mach number at the end tip of the blade, around 0.65. Okay. So 0.65 of Mach number 1, how much does that come out to be? Okay, so it's around 300 feet, 300 feet per second or something. Let me convert to meter. So 330, 0.65 into 330. If we assume the sound speed, oh my God, why are zero coming here? 0.65 into, right. So that is around 220 meters per second. So 210 to 220 meters per second is the approximate speed of the tip. So now, how much speed range are you left with before you hit supersonic? Hardly 100 meters per second. Actually, even not that, because we have to stop at 0.78, 0.8, right? So 0.8 Mach number is how much? 0.8 Mach number, 0.8 into 330. If I do 264, so 264 minus 214 is only 50 meters per second. So 50 meters per second is 180 kilometers per hour. So So that is the, so if I assume 0.6, maybe it will be slightly more. So typically helicopters would go at so 140 knots into I think 1.8 or something is there. So 250 kilometers, right? So a helicopter, the top speed for a helicopter is around 250 kilometers per hour. Okay, that's all you can get. Why? Primarily because of my Mach number at the tip becoming too high. So this is called compressibility effect. That is, my flow becomes supersonic on the blade. So this becomes one major flaw. So now how do I make my compound helicopter go faster? What can you do? I mean, even if I put the engine extra, I mean, my drag divergence will make everything impractical. So what is the practical solution? Only way available for you to make a helicopter move faster would be to fill in the blanks.
Add another rotor.
No, I mean, adding another rotor, how will it help you actually? Even with another rotor, if I want to fly fast, my flow becomes supersonic. I mean, my rotor will start drawing crazy amount of power.
Decrease the height, length of the blades.
Well, not not entirely, because if my rotor radius will become smaller, okay, my lift capacity will also decrease, right? But you are on the right track, okay? Because why you are trying to reduce the length of the blade? Because you want to decrease the tip speed.
Yes, sir.
Right. So what they do
Yes,
is
sir.
actually they make the rotor spin at lower speed, decrease the RPM. So if I decrease the RPM by 20% or 10%, I now have created extra room for my helicopter to fly faster. But what is the challenge then? If I make it slower, then I mean all helicopters will operate with slower speed. What is the problem now? If my RPM decreases, what else will decrease?
The lift will decrease.
My lift will decrease. If my lift decreases, there is some background noise. Can you mute? Yeah. So if my lift decreases, my helicopter won't be able to support its weight. Right? So that's how the idea of lift compounding and thrust compounding came into picture. Because if I reduce my RPM, okay, I mean, one thing is absolutely clear. I have to decrease my tip speed one way or the other. Okay. Now, for a given rotor, I mean, only way I can decrease the tip speed is by decreasing my engine RPM. So let's say I've decreased the engine RPM, but now I cannot have enough thrust. I cannot have enough propulsive force forward, because my rotor only gives propulsive force also. So that's why now I go back to the picture of compound helicopter. Yeah, right here. Okay. So that is why now you see this Dauphin helicopter, which is originally a helicopter called Dauphin, which means dolphin in French. So in that they have put these wings and they put these propellers. So now, because of my reduced speed of the rotor, the additional lift will be provided by my wings. And I reduce my rotor speed as I start moving forward, so that my lift starts to come from the wings. And my forward propulsion also, the thrust required to go forward also comes from these propellers. So the advantage of this is that now my helicopter doesn't have to tilt forward. So my overall helicopter drag is reduced because I can have more streamlined shape and so on. So that is the whole idea behind these compounds like Ferri Rotodyne and X3. But X2 does something different. It actually has two counter-rotating rotors, which are very, very rigid. And it's called lift offset rotor. There is a lot of theory behind it. I will not go in the details of that because we won't be worried about it and in this course. But they also have a propeller at the back. So the propeller at the back gives you forward propulsion, but all the lift comes from the rotors only. There is no wing in this. So they are only doing thrust compounding. And see, so because what happens, see, the deficit of one rotor, reduction in speed of one rotor would decrease my lift. So you have added another rotor. So now two rotors combined will give you enough lift. And in this case, they have said, okay, fine. I mean, the reduction in lift will come from my wing. So that's what I mean Eurocopter has done. So both these guys have gone with very different approaches. So X2 is now resulted in the design called, I showed you already, Raider. And so Raider is a 5-ton class helicopter. While bigger helicopter of 10-ton class, for example, like Black Hawk, to replace that, they have come up with a design called Deviant. It's exactly similar to this design, but only bigger. That's Deviant. So that's the whole story behind compound helicopters, right? So now I hope you understand why this kind of design choices have to be made. And these two things are sort of future of the helicopter technology. But now, I mean, we can see what is the pro and the con. The biggest pro is that it is very, very fast. Okay. It will have good maneuvering capability in both lower and higher speeds because your tail plane and all will have ailerons and elevator and all kinds of things to augment the control. Your helicopter flies straight. It doesn't have to tilt back forward or to move in to increase speed and so on. Of course, for sideways flight, you still have to tilt. Over efficiency takes a small hit. It will not be as efficient as a normal helicopter because now there are other things in the flow and it will create some kind of download. The overall vehicle is very more complex. So that is a negative point. Okay, now you have many additional things, different control surfaces, mix of things. As a result, your empty weight is going to increase. That is, the whole structural weight is going to increase and therefore empty weight will go up. And cruise efficiency may not be as good as an airplane, but it is still better than a helicopter. Some other designs were also tried. I mean, like this, I will not talk about this. This is a canard rotor wing stopped rotor concept where the wing actually starts to spin to become a rotor and then it is stopped to make a wing. Never built, never tested, so no point of discussing this. This we already talked about, twin rotor helicopters. Another twin rotor helicopter is this Kaman K-Max. So all these actually have advantage that, I mean, they allow you to have more lifting capacity and so on. Okay. And there is no loss because of tail rotor, at least, okay, so to speak. Now, tilt wings were unique designs which were under development in 60s. So this is 1959, this is 1964. So all these designs were built, flown, tested, but none of them could see the light of the day in the sense they were never good enough, reliable enough to be, manufactured. But now these are making a comeback, as we will see in the coming slides that some of these designs are actually making a comeback. So, I mean, again, the idea is that, I mean, what happens, I mean, I can take off and land with my propellers straight. After taking off, I tilt my propellers and the wings forward, and I go into forward flight like an airplane. But then the transition becomes very, very complicated and challenging for some of these vehicles. And this technology was, beyond people's, designers and engineers' league way back in 60s. But now it is again happening, okay, and a lot of interesting things are being developed. Other option is that instead of tilting the whole wing and propeller, I only tilt my propellers. And that is being done in Osprey, which is Bell Boeing V-22. Really good maximum speed, good maneuvering capability. Attitude depends, so now, I mean, what happens, I mean, in this case, when I tilt my propellers forward, okay, I become an airplane, I fly very well. Okay. So this is, I mean, a very interesting platform. It also has some challenges. There have been some crashes of Osprey, but nevertheless, it is still in production, still being used by American Army, Japanese Army, Australia also probably they use it. And it's a very versatile airplane and serves Army very well. So it was used extensively in Afghanistan war. So it allows you to take off and land from anywhere and travel with speed comparable to that of a turbofan engine, turboprop based airplane. So you can fly with speeds of a typical cargo airplane. So quite unique vehicle, again complex and higher empty weight, etc. But nevertheless, it has niche because it can go at 300 knots very easily. So it can fly at 500 kilometers per hour or so. That is the advantage. But this cannot be used for hovering for long. It cannot maneuver so much at lower speeds. It's mostly the objective is you simply vertically take off and transition and fly like airplane. you wouldn't want to fly like a helicopter mode for long. Some other designs were tried, like tilting ducted fans, in which ducted rotors were tried, and the idea was to tilt it. There is a lot of challenge in this. This people are even trying now, but here the aerodynamics becomes a big challenge because the ducted rotors don't like edgewise flow. So if I have a ducted rotor and if I want to drag it, okay, my video is visible to all of you, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so you can
Yes,
see
sir.
that also, right? Okay. So if you drag these ducted rotors sideways, okay, there is flow separation on the lip of the duct. So therefore, transitioning with these kind of vehicles become tricky. Although duct provides safety and smaller rotor radius for performance, but there are challenges. So again, this idea did not work. But now people are sort of revisiting this problem and being looked at again. Nevertheless, okay, so
Excuse me, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
can I ask one question?
sure, yeah.
Sir, you said that in in rotor design that we have the limitation of because of the Mach number that tip shouldn't reach
Yes.
1.
Yes.
Sir, I'm from non-aero, so it's my very basic question. So does that mean that that we cannot have a rotating parts, rotate any part in a airplane having Mach number greater than 1? Does that mean that?
No. You don't want that actually. Okay.
So then
So-
how fighter jets? Okay, they don't have any rotating parts. All right.
Right. So they have turbojet engines. Okay. Turbojet engines are built to operate at. So what happens in turbojet engines also in the front, you have actually compressors. And before compressors, you have diffusers. So supersonic flow is first made subsonic. Yeah. And subsonic flow is then, passed through compressors.
Okay,
And then compressors compress air and give it to the combustion chamber where combustion happens and so on and so forth. And then it's
So sir,
exhausted made
basically-
at higher speeds. Yeah.
basically, sir, fans have Mach 1 limit theoretically.
Not Mach 1 actually, it's Mach 0.8 limit.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Thank
you
you,
don't want to go beyond 0.8.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Go beyond 0.8, actually you will be in trouble. So that's why you will see turboprop in based vehicles will not fly at 0.8. Only turbofans fly at 0.8. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
So that is the deal that so when you go supersonic, you have huge power penalties. And Mach number 0.8 to almost 1.1, 1.2 is called transonic regime. That regime is mostly avoided because there are a lot of uncertainties there actually. Some places your flow may be supersonic, some places flow may be subsonic, so it is not good. It is hard to analyze, hard to understand what is going on. So mostly you go full supersonic, okay. Mach 2, then things are better. Okay. So this is again complex, high empty weight and so on. So not successful. Other design is this rotor embedded inside the wing of an airplane. So one such vehicle was Vanguard Omniplane. Once again, people are exploring this kind of design of having fan in wing with some lot of variations. There was one Project Zero by Augusta Westland, and Boeing also has been dabbling with the fan in wing kind of concept for their X-plane competition. Yeah. Anyway, so and this urban aero air mule is a design which has been under development for ages. It was an Israeli company. Originally, they started working on this, in some late 1990s actually. Yeah. So when I started my PhD, I got to read about this. And even now, it is not a successful design. Yeah. So it had a lot of problems, a lot of things, a lot of issues. So never got it working. So all these are complex. Open system like this is not very convenient, and it may have some advantages. The tail of this you see is a very unique tail. It's called VTDP, vectored thrust ducted propeller. So your propeller with a duct, and then there is vector thrust vectoring by using some vanes and so on. So all this makes things quite complicated. But then in the past, this idea did not work very well. People are now trying to overcome some of the challenges using more recent technology. So I was talking about the X-plane competition. So DARPA, which is a US defense arm, they actually always pose problems which are very futuristic. So whatever you army or defense people would need 20 years from now, they try to do it right now. So they throw impossible problems, very challenging problems. So they throughout this explain challenge, where objective was to achieve 300 to 400 knots of speed. So compound helicopters reach 300 knots easily. Yeah. Improve the hovering efficiency from 60% to at least 75%. So current compound helicopters would have 60% kind of efficiency or slightly lower. They have to improve it further and have a higher cruise lift to drag ratio of at least 10 than compared to 5 to 6, which normally is there. And have a payload fraction of at least 40% of the vehicle weight with the gross weight of around 10,000 pounds. So you make a 5-ton class vehicle, which should be able to lift payload of 40% of 5 ton. So 2 tons payload should be there and should have this high cruise efficiency and very high hovering efficiency. So it's a very, hard and impossible problem right now. But nevertheless, a lot of people tried. So this is Boeing's design. You see, part is ducted tilting rotor, then 2 ducted rotors are embedded like fan and wing kind of thing inside the fuselage. This is Kareem Aerospace had this variable speed tilt rotor or something or tail, and Sikorsky was working with some tail setter concept. So different companies have been trying to develop different kind of solutions based on their understanding. Still ongoing, I believe, and some stages have been completed. These are all scaled models everybody has made, not the full vehicle. And finally, the last way of doing, and probably the worst way of doing vertical takeoff and landing, is by using vectored jet lift. Okay. My video has disappeared from here. Let me see if I can find this video. This is what? F-35 Lightning. Yeah, I cannot find this. So I'm just trying to dig out the video of this particular flight of. Okay, I don't have it. Okay. Somehow this link has gotten bad. Yeah, it is an embedded video. Yeah, it's there in some of my other presentations, but here the link is messed up. So the video was that of actually F-35 Lightning, where you see this tilting of this nozzle, exhaust nozzle, and then there is a fan which is embedded inside the body. So there are doors here which actually opens up. So you can go and check out videos of Lightning on doing vertical takeoff landing. So they tilt this nozzle, they open this hatch, and the rotor is spun. And from sides also they sort of direct some of the exhaust. And with this 4 points of thrust, the whole vehicle lifts off vertically. Not very efficient, but good for a fighter plane, which is anyhow not very efficient thing. Okay. So this is the stealth fighter 5th generation aircraft, which can do vertical takeoff and landing. So this is one way. You can get very good speeds, very high maneuverability at higher speeds, but you cannot expect it to hover efficiently, do auto rotation and things like that. So those things are anyway, wrong to ask. If you guys have seen Die Hard 4 movie, Bruce Willis, have you seen Die Hard 4? In that, they have shown this movie. Shown this airplane. So at one point, Bruce Willis jumps over this hovering airplane and he fights the villain actually. So if you have not seen, you can check it out and you will see this airplane in motion. In that, you can see the fan also nicely, which is spinning here. Now, apart from that, a lot of other things are there, which is experimental things, a lot of experimental design. So here is a idea of a robo seed built at Maryland, where they try to make a powered maple seed. So you remember maple seed from last class, right? Same maple seed now.
Yes, sir.
Power it up. So he tried to make different variants of that, and so you can see this what he called robo seed flying inside the indoor environment. So with a controller in place, it can actually fly quite well. So this is how it looks like. So now I'm doing outdoor flight also manually. So this is how the final design evolved to be. Here you had batteries, a motor, few propellers, and this is the Samara shaped blade, which also has a pitch control here. So with that, you are able to see the video, right? And
No, sir.
No, sir.
yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, by mistake, I have actually shared the presentation. Okay, let me go back. Okay, I thought you were seeing it. So I'll stop the sharing thing, okay, and I'll share my whole screen. Then you'll be able to see. Okay. Now you can see. Yes, right. So you are able to see the here. I'm going to the point where, I mean, we had put it for static picture was there. Okay, fine. Well, let us see this part. So you can see the video. Something is flying.
Yes, sir.
So in a moment, I mean, we'll be able to pause it and see actually how it looks like. So there's some outdoor flying also on this. That part where we put the picture nicely. Yeah, this is somewhat okay. So this is what he is flying. So in this you can see now, I mean, the Samara shaped blade you can see. It is shaped like maple seed. And then the propeller is at one end, and other end you have battery and stuff. Okay. So this is the vehicle. I mean, and these markers you see are actually motion capture markers, using which he was able to track the motion and also able to control the UAV in flight. That's what you see flying. So the whole vehicle actually is spinning at all the time. This is the picture I wrote. So this is the final version which he had. So this propellers like this, and this there is a servo here which allows you to change the pitch angle of this blade, okay, and the battery etc. is here. It was a very nice, unique concept. In this case, he has put a camera on board, and you can see the whole camera is spinning, so you cannot see anything. It's just a big blur. Okay. So that is one design. I mean, some unique and novel design, I can say. Then there was a competition funded by Sikorsky Aircraft Corporation regarding human-powered helicopter. So, what do you think? A human being can fly a helicopter by his own muscle power? No engines. Okay, you are the engine in a helicopter.
No, sir.
No,
No,
No, sir.
we are confident it's impossible for a human being to fly a helicopter by his own power. So that was a challenge. Okay, and the prize money was, I think, $1 million. So you guys have just lost your $1 million. Okay. So you just saw impossible being made, right? So the challenge was to fly for at least 1 minute.
Oh.
Okay. And that is what was done. Okay. And two teams were competing very closely. University of Maryland, my alma mater, I mean, there was a team there who was also attempting the same thing. These guys actually were inspired from Maryland team and they started after Maryland. But Maryland actually had a huge problem of not being able to test this very frequently because of lack of space. Okay, Maryland is a big university and finding space to do this experiment was very challenging for them. And as a consequence, I mean, they were slightly behind. So they also achieved the same thing, but 1 week later than the Aerovelo team. The Aerovelo team is from Canada, University of Toronto. And these guys actually won this Sikorsky Prize. So yes, I mean, you cannot keep flying the helicopter forever, but for 1 minute it was achieved. It was achievable. And of course, the guy who was flying it, I mean, he was a trained cyclist. So you see, I mean, he was pedaling all the time. So, and they were all undergraduate students actually. Mostly, some graduate students were supporting them. Similarly, in Maryland also, most of the work was done by undergraduate students, and some graduate students were guiding them. So you can see that, I mean, what kind of things can be done if you are really determined to do it. Okay, so human-powered helicopters, we are now taking a major jump from there, going to China to see what EHang did. Are you familiar with this company called EHang? Heard of it?
Yes, sir.
What do they make?
They make air taxi.
Right, air taxi, yes. This is a horribly designed, worst kind of air taxi one can make. And because Dubai has a lot of money, okay, so everybody goes to sell their stuff, show off their stuff to Dubai people. Because there they care, I mean, more for fancy toys, right? I mean, people with a lot of oil money, they are always looking to look at all kinds of toys. So there is a guy, he calls this air taxi, Dubai. The air taxi comes and lands. Well, first takes off. By the time he's coming out, the taxi will come and land for him in his lawn. You have big lawns there, no wonder. Okay. So he puts his laptop behind and sits inside this driverless, pilotless aerial vehicle. And then enters the destination. And the vehicle takes off and takes you there. So this is the, I mean, just a big giant multi-rotor. Not at all, I mean, something which you would prefer or you would expect to run efficiently over a period of time. Okay. So this is not quite, I mean, the best possible design for an air taxi, but nevertheless easy to do it, and you could be the first to do it. Similar things have been done by many people, like there is a company called Kitty Hawk. Incidentally, these guys from Aerovelo, okay, who won the Sikorsky Prize, they were all hired by Larry Page. Who is Larry Page?
Related.
Yeah,
Yes,
Google, yeah, Alphabet, CEO of Alphabet, yeah, and co-founders of Google, right? So he has a lot of money. So he has invested in this lot of air taxi companies. Okay. Kitty Hawk happens to be one. So he went and hired this entire Aerovelo team and brought it to Kitty Hawk. Earlier, Kitty Hawk was actually run by ex-faculty of Stanford. What is his name? I forget his name all the time. Anyway, so he was running Kitty Hawk initially. Yeah. Right. So they have made this.
My only dream from a child I remember was when I could fly. And it was such an amazing feeling.
So they made something called Flyer.
It has to be real.
So EHang's design had 8 rotors. Yeah, so this guy is Thrun, Sebastian Thrun, who is now CEO of this Kitty Hawk. So they have made this really big multi-rotor, and they are operating it. I mean, you can take it for a rental and fly in it for some time over waters, because that's where it is safe. So they fly it over there. This is Flyer by Kitty Hawk. Black Fly is a very nice, interesting concept. Another VTOL air taxi personal aerial vehicle contender made by a company called Opener. This is already being sold apparently as a recreational vehicle in America. So this is a very unique design. So sorry. So this is how it actually hovers. Oops, instead of pausing it, it is actually going to the next slide. What is going on? Yeah. I have to escape out of this. Right. So what I was trying to show you is this. So this is how it actually hovers, and it takes off by leaning. So this is how it takes off and lands actually. Okay. So you sit inside that. So if you look carefully, the bottom of this aerial vehicle has been made like a ship hull, so it can do rock and roll about that. And the wings are actually aligned at a very strange angle, right? Almost 45 degrees. So okay, one moment, I need to pick up one call. Sorry. All right. So what I was talking about is that so the when it is hovering, so these propellers are actually aligned at 45 degrees with the longitudinal axis of the vehicle. So when it hovers, the whole vehicle is tilted backwards slightly. So the person sitting inside will be leaning backwards in the hovering flight, and to go forward flight, I mean they tilt by 45 degrees and they go forward. Okay, so that's the whole business here, but it's very so now I mean you don't require any tilting of anything, no tilt rotor, no tilt wing business, just the vehicle maneuvers by some angle and you can go forward flight and then back transition and everything. So very nice, unique design. Name of the company is Opener, and apparently that is also owned by this guy Larry Page. Okay. So he has invested in this particular company also, and they have made this vehicle. It's they are saying that it's already being sold and so on. I have not checked up, I mean, what stage they are at right now, but it's doing well. Now here is a video of another design from Kitty Hawk, same company, Larry Page's company, called Cora. Not very good design, but again, I mean, easier, simpler design, whatever we can say. Sorry, I need to take my call now. It's coming and it's going. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, let's continue. Yeah, it is hung up. So this is Sebastian Thrun, CEO of Kitty Hawk. So they made this vehicle. So the vehicle, as you can see, has a lot of these propellers, short propellers, bad efficiency of the propellers. Smaller propellers are not very good. So you have this ton of these propellers which are used for takeoff and landing, and then you have another propeller for forward propulsion. So like a quad plane, okay, a multi-rotor with a airplane, or a multi-rotor stuck to an airplane. Very bad aerodynamics, bad engineering. Works fine, okay, but I don't like such vehicles. Aerodynamically, they are really dirty, not very efficient, may not work coming in long run, but it's okay. I mean, to prove the concept and so on. So that is Cora, okay, from Google. So right now there are so many different people doing a lot of different vertical lift air taxi concepts in America. In India, also some people are trying, but most of the people who are trying, I mean, they don't know what they're doing. I mean, frankly speaking. Okay. So anyway, here is a very different kind of thing. Well, not different, but yeah, I mean, this was also a unique and exciting idea from a company. Oh, this is sorry, Vahana. Okay, I mean, I thought initially Lilium Jet. Yeah, yeah. So this is Lilium Jet I was showing, and it somehow went to other video. Okay. Right. So Lilium Jet is, I mean, also under extensive development. They use these tilting ducted rotors or ducted fans on the trailing edge of the wing. Okay. These guys have raised a lot of money. They are working. They have some tall claims what they intend to achieve. So yeah, this is the design. Okay. So they have some 36 ducted fans. Okay. 20 12 of them in the front and 24 in the back. So the front they have a canard, small canard, and back they have a full wing. So these are mounted at the tip of the wing, okay. Trailing edge of the wing, and it gets tilted. Okay. So maybe this video, when it takes off, you can see. So they hope to achieve 300 kilometers per hour speed. So here you can see. So you see this part. Okay, so this entire part actually will tilt back and forward. And likewise here it is the whole thing actually tilts to horizontal orientation or remains vertical. This is what they hope to achieve. Right now they are not even close to that. They are developing for quite some time, and they have done full-scale tests also very recently. But I mean, my concerns are that this could be very, very noisy.
So, is this the start of the flying car age that we've all been promised? I mean, we've already got the Chinese companies can fail, and the crafts can still perform VTOL operations.
Right. So, you're saying that, I mean, even if some of my fans actually fails, my system can still work. Okay. So, there is a lot of built-in redundancy, which is good. Actually, all air taxi systems have built-in redundancy. So, you'll have extra propellers, extra motors. So, if some of them fail, still system should be safe and should operate fine. So, I mean, it's still under development, a lot of things to be done. Only time will tell whether this idea is fine. But what my concern is that these ducted rotors are very noisy. Okay. And noise would be also a very critical consideration for all urban aerial mobility vehicles, okay, all air taxi concepts. This is Vahana, okay, what was developed by Airbus. Interesting name, Indian name, because Germans have a lot of fascination with Sanskrit. Okay. So somebody chose this Vahana name. Okay. And this Vahana, I mean, they have built 2 prototypes, and now the project is closed. Airbus is now working on something different. So this was a tilt wing design. Okay. So vehicle takes off, and then you tilt the wings slightly forward and enter forward flight. So this has 30-degree wing tilt. Okay. It's still reasonably high. It's not like fully tilted. Okay. And they did a lot of test trials to see how the vehicle performs. So it has 8 rotors, propellers. Each rotor propeller has variable pitch. And then there are elevators, ailerons, those kind of things also. So a lot of controls. All the RPMs can be changed also. So they have around 20 control inputs. And they decide, I mean, what control inputs to use to overall control the behavior of the elevator. Yeah, so that's all. I mean, there are so many different ideas and designs. Here is something which we built here in our lab. It's a robotic boomerang, what we call. So it's a boomerang which is remote controlled with a motor propeller attached. So its idea is similar to what Ivan Ulrich has made. I mean, that RoboSeed, but it's more like a boomerang and flies like a boomerang also. So this we claim as world's first remote control boomerang. Application mostly recreational and fun kind of thing. So I am the guy who is flying this actually, and it was rather easy to fly. I mean, I had never flown anything like this before. Nobody had flown anything like this before, but it was fairly easy to fly. I'll skip this, not very critical. Okay, so right. So I mean, that was kind of the coverage of various things happening in the world related to road driving aerial vehicles. Okay. Now we need to get into more serious ideas. That is how helicopters fly, how they get controlled, and basic ideas related to helicopter. So the theme of the course will remain as helicopter, but the technology, whatever things we learn, can be applied to wind turbines, can be applied to all kinds of rotary wing aerial vehicles, for airplane propellers, whatever you want. All those things would be also possible. So the way a helicopter works is that, I mean, your rotor spins, it does work on the air, pushes it down, and in the reaction, air pushes the rotor up, and helicopter lifts up. Now, if I want to achieve propulsion for forward flight, I tilt my rotor disc like this. So the tip path plane tilts, and I get a small component of my thrust in forward direction, which gives me propulsion. And because there is action of spinning a rotor, there is always a reaction which has to be counted. That can be done either by putting a tail rotor or putting a second rotor, which is spinning in the opposite direction. So that is essential. We require a mechanism for anti-torque. The question is, how does a helicopter fly? What are the main inputs and outputs in a helicopter? So there is a video which shows some of the things. So here is a pilot who will fly a Robinson R-22 helicopter. So in this, what I wanted to see is that, I mean, the kind of controls which are there in a helicopter. So in airplane, I mean, normally you have a joystick which will control the roll and pitch motion of the helicopter. So up and down and turning motions. And there will be a throttle which will control the thrust. In helicopter, we have this stick which he is actually holding, is called collective stick. So if he pulls that stick, the pitch angle of all the rotor blades will change by same amount. So you will see in this. So once he pulls the stick, and so if he pulls the stick, you will see the collective pitch on the blade changing. You will see the swash plate will move up. This is the swash plate. So he moved up and the pitch angle increased. So that increases the thrust and the helicopter will lift off by pulling the collective. The stick which he was holding, the collective stick, okay, there is also a knob on that which you can turn, just like the way you twist it for a helicopter or for a scooter or a motorcycle, like accelerator. So similar kind of knob is there which you can twist with your hand, and this would allow you to increase the throttle of the engine. So increase the engine power or decrease the engine power, and pulling it increases collective and helicopter lifts off. Then there would be these pedals. These pedals are used to control the tail rotor. So by moving it, you can change the collective pitch on the tail rotor. So that will decide whether the torque is perfectly balanced, or you create a small imbalance allowing the helicopter to spin left or right. So you'll push pedals to control the helicopter left, right. And then this is the central stick. So this is the central stick which when you move it, just like airplane control, this will allow the helicopters, if I push it forward, helicopter will go forward. If I push it backward, helicopter will go backwards. Side, it will go side, because helicopter can fly in all the directions. So this actually controls the cyclic pitch. And what is cyclic pitch? So exhaust plate actually can be tilted. So if you can tilt the exhaust plate, what happens is the pitch link will actually on one side will move more, other side it will move less. And as a result, the blade will actually move like a sine wave. Okay. So you can see here the motion of the exhaust plate. So he's saying, I mean, how the cyclic pitch is changing. Okay. So it's a British video, so you can see a cricket bat being used as a helicopter blade. So in this, what happens? I mean, if you look at it again, so it is increasing, then decreasing, going up and coming down. Oh, by the way, I actually had a really nice video. I don't remember where it is. I'll have to dig it out. Where actually they had put a camera on the blade, and you can actually see the blade moving and doing all the motions which it normally does. So anyhow, so that actually allows the helicopter to be moved in different directions by using the cyclic pitch.
Sir,
Yeah.
so which one of those two is actually used to increase the lift, the changing of pitch angle
Changing
or
of pitch.
the speed of the rotation?
No, the speed of the throttle is only to take the rotor RPM to a particular value.
Mhm.
Once you use that RPM, afterwards the throttle is automatically controlled using the engine control system, mostly, or manually adjusted slightly to ensure that RPM is maintained. So the rotor RPM is not changed; it is maintained. Only the pitch angle is changed to do all the maneuvers, lift up, down, whatever.
Mhm. Okay.
All right, so let's move forward. So that brings us to the fundamental question: okay, why do we have a separate course on helicopters, right? I mean, many of you are already trained as aerospace engineers. You have done BTech in aerospace engineering. Okay. Some of you have mechanical background. Nevertheless, but I mean, why have a separate study about helicopters? What makes helicopters different from fixed wing airplanes? So the most fundamental